Welcome to Ask Me Anything 2020 with your host, Frederick Dodson. Thanks for all the questions you sent in. It's way more questions than I can answer in this 1 hour session. So I simply went to answer the first that came in as they came in. So this first question is from Lars in Austin. And it's, you are clearly an alien starseed, which is awesome. Where are you from? Another dimension? Another planet, etc.? Very curious. My answer to that is, it's your assumption that I'm an alien or a starseed, and I guess that would be a nice myth to maintain for marketing purposes, but I don't really define myself as such. I define myself as a regular. I behave as a regular, and I live my life as a regular. I don't have a flying saucer out of my garden that I take on tours throughout the universe. Now, I may be a starseed or may not. You might be right, you know. But that's not how I experience myself in daily life. I define myself as a success coach and consciousness researcher. And that's what I do. So I couldn't tell you where I'm from. But I do believe it is possible, of course. You know my books. I believe you can experience that, and people do experience it. And I've experienced stuff from other planets, other places, parallel lives, and so forth. The next question is from Arabia. And it's, how do I know if a person is suitable for marriage? What a contrast to the last question, huh? The last question being about star seeds, and this one is about being suitable for marriage. Okay, that's a common question from the Arabic region, just like money questions are common from the American region. You know, and it shows you what is lacking in certain regions. And in the Arabic regions, you have you have difficulty with the marriage topic and relationship topic. So normally you'd know that somebody is suitable by spending some time with them. But I know that in your culture, that's not always given. I'd recommend at least a year. I also recommend you read my book, Levels of Energy, if you haven't already, so that you can determine other people's level of consciousness. Moreover, see how that person reacts not only in friendly and harmonious contexts, but see how that person reacts in difficult situations, awkward situations. See how they react to criticism. See how they react when they're completely authentic. Because often when two get to know each other, they only show their bright side, you know, and then you move in with them, or you get married to them, and then you see the other side, the shadow side. So every human being has a shadow, and that shadow can be seen in challenging or difficult situations. So if there's a problem situation and they react calmly, that's a good sign. It's a good sign of high consciousness. This next question is from Fernando in Mexico. I would like to ask your opinion on Alzheimer's. Do you think it's curable from a non-standard approach using consciousness techniques, even when the deceased person seems to be not aware of him or herself to apply any techniques. The reality creation approach to Alzheimer's is the following. It's a sophisticated technique, requires some work. You set up a scenario that the person had, like 30, 40 years ago, when their memory was fully intact, when they were happy, completely lucid. So you set up the similar furniture, you play similar music or a similar radio station, you dress in similar fashion. You try to recreate a time in which that person was fully lucid. I've seen people do that before. Scientists have done it before too, with amazing results, because we have body memory. Everything's stored in the body, and in so doing, the person often returns and comes back. That part of the person that was lucid, you see. On the other hand, I personally am respectful of a person's need to slowly switch off. I know there's a subconscious desire in some to, switch off the mind and slowly retreat from life. And so they subconsciously create some malady, They might create cancer or Alzheimer's because they're just fed up. And so they slowly retreat from life, and I'm respectful of that desire. I'm not necessarily of the mind to try to push somebody or force somebody to stay or get healthy. But that's something for you to decide, You can try the reality creation approach to it using cues from yesteryear, music from a long time ago, fashion, expressions, vocabulary from a long time ago, smells from back in the day, or even visiting the place that person used to live can bring back stuff. Or you can just, in dignity, allow them, give them the space to be the way they are, and to gradually retreat. This next question is from Zainab in Basra, Iraq. And it's how to silence the inner voice and have inner peace. Well, Zainab, all of the books I've written, the videos I've recorded, the audios I've recorded, especially on my membership website, are answers to that question. The question is fairly vague, so I'll give you a vague answer. Almost everything I've done is an answer to that question. In silencing the mind, non-resistance, stomach breathing, and focusing are probably important components that will always make the mind quieter. The next question here is from Stefan in Frankfurt. And it's when facing a disease and feeling symptoms, I try to accept, not resist, but on the other hand, imagine being healthy. It seems contradictory to me because feeling healthy seems to resist the disease. Could you please give me advice? Well, first of all, you don't do them both at the same time. They're separate exercises, separate phases of an exercise. So you might practice some of accepting, feeling, accepting. And then in another phase, you might practice some feeling healthy, imagining healthy. If you attempt these at the same time, they might seem contradictory. Moreover, as long as you try to accept something you're not accepting it, you're trying to accept it. Difference between trying to accept and actually accepting something. If you fully accepted it, you wouldn't have much of a problem imagining yourself being healthy. The reason you have a problem is because you still feel some resistance. So the fact that you experience that as contrary or contradictory or difficult is because there's a bit of non-acceptance left. That's why I teach non-resistance on the one hand, acceptance on the one hand, reality creation on the other hand. Because if somebody is only using visualizing and imagining, it turns into a sort of escapism without confronting what's already there. Once you accept it fully, you no longer have attention stuck to it, and then it's easy to visualize what you prefer, and that goes for everything, every reality. The next question is from Christian, and it's, did you read the book Army of the Stars by Enrique Barrios? The content is out of this world. Well, I'm sure it is, Christian. After reading this message, I went to check online, saw it's a children's book. I receive many book recommendations, almost on a weekly basis. And that means that I only follow up on those that I hear several times. So if I hear a recommendation once, twice, 3 times, then I'm going to look into it. Okay, so I've heard yours once, and if I hear it 2 more times from independent people, I'll look into it. This next question is from Mark in Germany, and it's how to equip a new house in view of energetic aspects, positive energy. Mark, I think that's an important question. I'd use mostly gentle, light and neutral color tones because you don't want too much external influence of your mood. You want the mood to come from within, so I'd use white, gray, black, beige, but more light than dark. I'd keep a place spacious and minimal without too much clutter, because that reflects empty mind, which is good mind, healthy mind, fairly empty mind. And too much clutter reflects too much baggage. Your outside is a reflection of your inside is a reflection of your outside. So the question is really good. Most people like to crowd their spaces, and it's not really a good thing, energetically speaking. Just decluttering your place can have very positive effects on your state. I'd recommend not having too many pointy objects, because pointy objects indicate aggression. I personally wouldn't have any mirrors in the bedroom. I'm not superstitious or anything, but that's one thing I wouldn't have in the bedroom, mirrors. Because it brings turbulence into the space. Couch, chair, and bed are better if there's a wall behind, because that gives you protection and a sense of knowing what's going on behind your back. A workspace or desk should be placed so that when you look up from the workspace or the computer or whatever, you can see out of the window into the distance. That's important for the health of your eyes, but also for your mentality. I see a lot of people having their desk against the wall, and then they're looking into this box, and then they look up, and there's still a box there. Not recommended. You want the contrast to the computer box. You want to be able to look out into the distance. I recommend that before buying large items or important items, you sleep over it. Because there's some items, people only keep them because they like them at a time, impulse shopping, and then they're stuck with an item and they don't get rid of it, and they're stuck with it, they don't like it. So look at the item you wish to buy and then sleep over it a night or 2 or 3, and if you still like it, then get it. Because these are decisions that affect your living space for years to come, energetically. Get an idea of what your ideal home looks like and try to get closer and closer to that ideal over time. The next question is from Elroy. My question would be, is prayer as effective as the reality creation techniques? If so, what is the right attitude to pray with? Also, on the same subject, what are your thoughts about ho'oponopono, which is repeating the phrase, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. Is that helpful? Well, it depends on the attitude of the user. Elroy, a lot of people use this ho'oponopono as some kind of mantra that they just put on every situation that bothers them. Instead of integrating the feeling, they use these tools, not only this tool, but also my tools often, as a way to keep feelings at bay. Something bothers them, it comes up, and they're like, okay, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, just don't bother me, And that's misuse of these techniques. I'd only use this ho'oponopono if it were genuine love being felt, genuine forgiveness, a genuine gratitude. So such techniques should be used sparingly, only when it's really authentic, and not as some kind of mantra to avoid feeling. And I say that to you because you're currently attending the Lightness of Being online course, where it's all about integrating the feelings rather than necessarily using all kinds of techniques on them, but allowing yourself to feel. As for prayer, there's also different attitudes toward prayer. Some people only use prayer when they're in the tight spot, prayers of begging, of asking, of wanting, and that's okay. You can ask for stuff, but that's not the only form of prayer there is. Unfortunately, that's the most used form of prayer. But if you look at the book of Psalm, for example, which is probably the highest consciousness level, energy level book in the Bible, number 1, it's full of prayers of praise, prayers of gratitude, almost no prayers of asking or wanting, and almost all praising, appreciating, being grateful. And, from a reality creation perspective, if you keep praising and appreciating, it's as if you're coming from a place of abundance already. And guess what's going to happen in your life if you're already coming from abundance? Well, you're going to attract more abundance, get more abundant. So prayer is not only about asking, it's a two-way street. It's, to put it shortly, prayers of gratitude and appreciation are more powerful. Okay? Which doesn't mean you can't ask. Ask and it is given. Ask for anything. The same applies to reality creation. Now, your question is prayer as effective as reality creation? Well, prayer is a form of reality creation. It's not a contradiction. Okay, in reality creation, we call it intentions, and there you call it prayer. So prayer is a form of reality creation, and it's very effective, and it's not a contradiction to reality creation, you know. The next question is from Mark, who asks, in which things do you agree with Neville Goddard's teachings? In which do you disagree? Well, Mark, I'm not that familiar with Neville. I only started reading a few Neville books a couple of years ago because people kept telling me, Fred, your teachings are so similar to Neville's. And they kept telling me about Neville this, Neville that. Oh, that's exactly what Neville says. You know, that was around 2016. And I'd heard of him before, but not in depth. I thought, okay, let's look into this Neville guy, you know, and see what this Neville is all about. It was around 2016. I started reading his books, his audio books actually. And I chose books on, you know, on the reality creation idea. And I agree with him on the idea of putting your consciousness to a place of the wish already fulfilled. I love that, and I have taken over that expression from him. Putting your consciousness to a place of the wish already fulfilled. That's what I agree with. His other teachings did not interest me at the time, so I'm not familiar with them, so I can't answer on that. Okay? But as far as I know, that's the main teaching, right? There's not so much else there. That's the core of what he teaches. So, sorry, can't answer because I don't know the other teachings. The next question is from Ahmed in Egypt, and it's, Dear Mr. Frederick Dodson, you always advocated the need to be in a state of peace and relaxation. Well, always? Okay. Sorry. But you participate in a movie about World War. Oh dear. Is that kind of a contradiction? Or another thing I can't realize on my current level of consciousness? Well, Ahmed, it's about context, okay? The context of playing in that movie, and I don't know how you know that I played in that movie, but I did. They took out a lot of scenes of mine, by the way, leaving only one scene in the end, which is too bad. I didn't watch the movie myself. I just saw that one scene that I play in. But the context of that was I was coaching someone who was into acting, and they couldn't find a role. And I said to them, I made a kind of a bet with them. I said, I bet I can get a role in a movie within 2 weeks. You know, and then I hustled and bustled, and I got the role. And I was really happy because I could show the student that. So that was the context. It was in the context of helping a student realize they could reach their acting goals more quickly because they were struggling for a long time. The context was not, okay, I'm going to go out and find how I can support war. All right. Most of my life's work, as you note, is geared toward helping people be more peaceful, more relaxed, which actually reduces war. So that's been my life's work. However, you should acknowledge that life is both peace and struggle. It's both positive and negative. And the reason for that is so that a human can choose. So we're not living in higher realms, okay? We came down here to have a little bit of challenge, a little bit of struggle, because from the perspective of infinite consciousness, indestructible, invincible consciousness, a little bit of struggle and challenge is not so bad. A little bit of negativity is not so bad. It can help you learn and choose, and it's like training. You know, if there's an infinite consciousness that can't die, you know, it doesn't mind having its plane crash against the mountain. From your perspective, that's horrible. Okay, no, I don't want to die that way. Goodness, no, plane crashing against the mountain. But consciousness, because it's indestructible and lives forever, it might say, that's interesting. You know, see what that feels like. So acknowledge that life is both, and don't just sort out or deny the other side. Okay? It's meant to be challenging so that you can learn and grow. Moreover, as far as war goes, I think it would be great if we role play war and action instead of actually doing it. I've often said it would be great if we carry out our conflicts in sports. So if there's a conflict between two countries, we get on a sports field and we solve it that way, you know, in a game, in playing, and not in reality. The next question is from Susanne in Austria. What level of energy is at least necessary for lucid dreaming? In order to lucid dream, you must be at a relaxed place in your life and consciously invested in lucid dreaming. You know, for example, people who write dream journals, they write down their dreams every morning or they repeat them every morning. Such people are consciously invested in lucid dreaming. If you've read my latest book, Time Travel, I tell the story of a guy who was so invested in his dreams that he dedicated his entire life to its research. And he had a lot of precognitive dreams where he saw the future, lucid dreams, you name it. You know, so there needs to be a conscious investment. Lucid dreaming can happen on any level of consciousness, any level of energy, but it's true that if you have more energy, it's easier. And it's most common in the 400s. The next question is, Dear Mr. Dodson, I think you are the best writer in the world and a blessing to this planet. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the great work you have done. This is from Isa in Finland. And the question is, how does one build courage? 2 weeks ago, I posted a video on YouTube for free called The Power of Courage. That video is an answer to this question. It's a much better answer than I could give you here in a few seconds. The Power of Courage. I'll answer it anyway, okay, but watch the video. You can only build courage in situations where you're afraid. That's the only time you can build courage. Because courage means acting in spite of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, it means acting in spite of fear. It's one of my favorite sayings. You can build it in situations you're afraid of by stepping up, speaking up, stepping forward, standing up, doing it. That's the way to build courage. by facing things you shied away from. And I do that habitually. I've always done that. And when a person stops doing that, they start declining. They start hiding. And they no longer confront or face or openly express. And then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if there's something bothering you at work, express it openly. For example. The next question is from the US, and it's, how can I use reality creation to accelerate my strength and get stronger in powerlifting? By paying attention to how you see yourself during powerlifting. Because if you're not in good shape yet, you shouldn't look into the mirror too much. And if you do look into the mirror, you should distort your view of yourself to something better. You should always visualize yourself better during powerlifting. Feel yourself better. And it's much easier to do that during powerlifting because it combines visualizing with physical motion, physical action. And that makes visualizing in and of itself isn't all that powerful. But if you combine visualization with a physical action, with demonstrating it, that's where the power begins. That's where the imagined can transform into reality. A combination of imagination and action is very powerful. So thanks for the question. The next one is, hi, I am Selka, and I'm from Germany and Croatia. What are your thoughts about ASMR? ASMR is simply energy. It's an energy response in the body. Actually, it proves what I say, that everything is energy. Music is energy. You hear this piece of music and you feel energy coursing through your body in reaction to that music, and that's the energy of the music plus your feeling about it, your alignment with it. You're resonating with that type of music, often because of the mental associations you have. So it's a mixture of those two things. Okay, for example. And Selka goes on to ask, why is the universe talking in some interesting ways to me? Very often I'm talking about something and the next minute I'm reading the same thing, for example in a book, or getting answers to questions I ask. Sometimes even the radio or TV answers my thoughts. Well, that's simply synchronicity. Everybody experiences that because everything is interconnected. Everything is connected to everything else. But most people don't perceive it. So be happy that you perceive how interconnected everything is. Because 90% out there have no clue. Okay, they're blind. They really think that there's no relation between this and that happened by coincidence, and that's a coincidence, and there's no rhyme or reason to anything. Everything's quite connected. Everything you read, see, hear, feel. This next question is from Hamza in Saudi Arabia. And she says, my question is about patience. Pain and joy as two sides of the coin, and how they are related, and how to keep balanced while experiencing them. Hamza, it's a complicated question. I'm answering these questions spontaneously. This one I probably have to think about it a bit longer, okay? Patience. Do you think you need patience with your pain? I wouldn't see joy and pain as two sides of the same coin. I know polarity thinking and pendulum thinking is very popular in these circles, but I'd simply, to make things less complicated, I wouldn't say that if you experience joy, you have to experience pain. If you experience pain, you have to experience joy. I'd say pain is simply an indicator that something is wrong and needs to be corrected. Whereas joy is an indicator that something you're thinking or doing is the right path. I'd keep it simple, okay? And not necessarily relate the two in that, you have to balance the two or something. It's not the right way to see it. The opposite of pain is pleasure, actually, and not joy. Joy is more of an inner thing that has no opposite, has no polarity. Source has no polarity. So, polarity thinking does not apply to source. And source is love, source is joy. Moreover, if you can accept the pain fully, it'll dissolve. It's like the answer I gave to somebody else earlier, okay? It'll dissolve. Accept it fully. You can get treatment, of course. That might help. But you also have to accept it fully. And then balance that. Maybe that's what you mean. Balance that with doing joyful things and not only being involved in the pain. There needs to be a balance, okay? Don't spend all your day thinking about the pain, treating your pain, trying to heal the pain, looking at the pain. Spend a little time, but not all day. Find joyful things to do. Now, I might have misunderstood your question. If so, I'm sorry. Okay, but that's what I get from it. The next question is from Hungary, from Ben, and it's, what habits do you recommend for increasing cognitive skills? Well, there's a lot of specialized methods for cognitive skills. We call them brain gym in America. So there's brain gym books, brain gym websites, But I don't use those because I believe that if you clear out all the thought, emotion, and belief rubbish, that automatically increases your cognitive skills, your intelligence, and your perception. That's been my experience. Okay, so I'd almost say no training at all is required except to clear stuff out. I have these programs in my membership site called Attention Training, as well as Emotional Clearing, as well as an awesome program called the Advanced Energy Clearing Course, and another thing called Advanced Energy Clearing, the video. And these four are just awesome. They clear out all kinds of stuff. You use them repeatedly. And once you're clear, calm, and at ease, cognitive skills is no longer an issue. Memory is no longer an issue. Intelligence is no longer an issue. So that's the path I'd go instead of brain gym. Nothing against brain gym. You could do that too, of course. But I personally don't use that. The next question is from Jacob. And Jacob says, in the US, it seems most of reality creation, as taught by you, is focusing on what we would rather have mentally and emotionally than what is currently being experienced. If my understanding is correct, what are some distinct differences between reality creation and, say, being lost in fantasy? Or just elaborate fantasy creation? Thank you for your time. Well, Jacob, reality creation is focusing on what you prefer and then feeling it, being it, and acting upon it in real life. And the acting upon it is the main distinction. Being lost in a fantasy lacks commitment to change. It lacks pragmatism, action, and practice. It lacks the will to release old emotion, and to be more authentic. That's what you don't have when you get lost in fantasies. You don't have the will to discover your true self. You just want to go away. You just want to avoid daily life. You want to avoid some pain. But the reality creator does not avoid daily life. The reality creator embraces daily life and all of its challenges and inconveniences, which I teach a lot in my books, And the reason I teach so much about embracing challenges, integrating emotions, is so that people don't use this as fantasy, as escapism. So thanks for asking the question, because the distinction is important. Reality creation is taking fantasy and bringing it as close as possible to reality, acting it out, getting as close as possible. So the fantasy we take is more realistic. It's closer to who we are. It's in our vicinity. And I also teach that, by the way. So if you got a fantasy from, let's say, super fantastic level 10 and very realistic at level 1, you don't want to take a level 10 thing. You want to take something that's closer to you, a level 3, a level 4, And I teach that too. The next question is from Rich in the US, and it's, have you or would you be interested in studying glossolalia, whatever you call it. That's speaking in tongues. What value do you see in the practice? Well, Rich, I think it's an interesting subject. I have spoken in other languages before in my sleep. People have heard me. Back in the day, in my 20s, once I was heard speaking Greek fluently, even though I've never learned Greek. And once I was heard speaking a completely unknown language, which may have been speaking in tongues. So there are people who go into trance and speak the languages of other realms or times. And I think that's either a radical shift in energy vibration, or it's a form of entity possession, negative or positive entities, I don't know. So one of those. I think it should be researched and explored. There's a lot of things that should be researched and explored, and I think our universities are not doing their job by denying anything paranormal, anything supernatural, anything consciousness related. I mean, that's an outrage, That's why people are so ignorant on so many things, because our official institutions are not doing their job. This is, however, not something I'm personally exploring, personally studying, because I'm already into other stuff. I'm exploring other stuff. The next question is from Tracy. My question is how to stay present and enjoy my time left when there's extreme anxiety upon awakening every single morning. Not sure if it's enhanced to post-pancreatic cancer surgery. Well, it certainly is. The cancerous tumor was removed, but the mental after effects are seemingly more debilitating than the physical pain. I'm not looking forward or even sure about the impending follow-up chemo that the doctors are heavily recommending. It was hell in itself prior to surgery. Any suggestions? Well, Tracy, this is not the space, in this short space, not the space to really answer that question. I'm sorry. It's a deeper, more serious topic. It's low energy, apathy, depression levels because of what you've been through, and also because only something physical was removed, but the emotions that caused the cancer originally were probably not addressed. So what I'd recommend more than anything, apart from prayer, is emotional integration, emotional healing, emotional clearing. You can use the programs on my website for that, or you can look into books on the topic. Okay, read as much as you can on emotional integration, emotional clearing, emotional healing. That's the way to go, in my view. In addition to any treatment you choose to do. Best wishes. This is Jack in Australia. Hey Fred, in your opinion, as the collective consciousness of humanity rises, what different characteristics will animals, domesticated pets show? Will they be more increasingly intelligent or even more emotionally sensitive? What's your belief? Now there's one question I don't have the answer to. Thanks for being that one question, because I don't want to appear as a know-it-all, I have no idea. I guess it's the question of to which extent animals have consciousness, and to which extent their consciousness develops, their intelligence develops. Is their consciousness collective or individual? And these are all very interesting questions that need exploring, but I have not explored them yet. The next question is, hello, what causes fear of making mistakes and how to deal with it? Well, fear of making mistakes is usually caused by threat of punishment of making mistakes in school and from parents. That's how the entire society is run and kept in check. That's how people are indoctrinated and brainwashed. Fear of punishment and promise of reward. So if you don't do good, I'll punish you. If you do good, I'll reward you. And that kind of conditioning is important to break if you ever want to be truly free. So you could break it by allowing yourself to make mistakes, by being kind to yourself when you make mistakes, by being gentle with yourself, giving yourself space to make mistakes and saying it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, because if you have the intention to do better and to do right, you don't need to feel guilty or bad about making mistakes. If we weren't pressuring ourselves so harshly in making mistakes, we'd learn much more quickly. This whole reward and punishment nonsense that the world is run on really disables quick learning and quick growth. You can learn so much more quickly if mistakes are simply acknowledged, without guilt, without shame, and then you move on and you try better. Okay? So give yourself the space. That space and tolerance has to come from you. The love has to come from you. It didn't come from society, so you have to give the permission. This next question is from Gustavo in Brazil. How to release what is labeled bipolar disorder, formerly called manic depression. Gustavo, all ailments are the result of suppressing emotions. If emotions weren't suppressed, then there would be more desire for being neutral once in a while, being calm once in a while, being in the middle once in a while, rather than bipolar, being balanced. There would be focus on that. Less drama talk, less drama behavior, less labeling of the different states you have. It's all emotional suppression, and the solution to that is to learn about emotional releasing and emotional integrating, as I teach it in my books and audios. These are effective, they work. Try them out. It works, otherwise I wouldn't be teaching it. Now, here's a very, very long email from Carola in Spain. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's about making a big jump career-wise because she's procrastinating and doing all kinds of other stuff. And Carola, from reading your message earlier, I read it earlier, what if it's not a big jump, a big leap that you're looking for? What if it's still, what if it's a steady walk instead of the big leap? Because what got you in the place you are today is a steady walk. And what if you just keep doing steady walking? Okay, number one. Number two, why is your email phrased in a way that you make it look like these activities, such as cooking, sports, cleaning, procrastinating, are not chosen by you? Okay, she has a radio station. She'd like to work on that, but she instead works on other stuff, and it's phrased as if somebody else is doing that. Realize, please, that you are doing that, and there's a reason you're doing that. There's a reason you're procrastinating, cooking, doing sports. Maybe because it's easier, maybe because it's lighter, maybe this idea of a big shift and big jump just feels a bit too heavy, whereas the idea of a steady walk, a gentle walk, step by step, feels better. So if I were in your shoes, I'd tolerate the procrastination instead of resisting it, saying, okay, it's okay if you do other stuff. I understand why you do it. It's okay that you're a little bit nervous and scared. That's all right, and it's okay if you didn't work on your radio station all day or all week even. That's all right. Now I'm going to work on it a little bit, and that's all right too. And a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. You shouldn't, it's okay to work on it, then not work on it, not work on it, work on it, not work on it. And maybe you can take that into your meditation. Imagine working on it, imagine not working on it. Imagine working on it, imagine not working on it. Imagine working on it, imagine not working on it, until you're okay and non-resistant with both. And then just keep your steady improvement up. And that's the way, change is the easiest. Then it isn't overwhelming because it seems you're afraid of that big jump. Well, it doesn't have to be a big jump. It's not like there's a huge abyss that you have to cross. There's bridges that you can steadily walk. That's the answer for now. The next question is from Herman, or Hermann, depending on where you're from, Germany or Scandinavia. Do you see yourself as an enlightened being or just someone residing on a habitual high level of energy? My answer to that is neither. I don't see myself as an enlightened being or on a special high level of energy. I see myself as someone who has temporarily experienced these higher levels of consciousness and am therefore equipped to talk on them, but not as someone who is enlightened. You see? I see myself as a success coach and consciousness researcher, as already said earlier. Herman continues, do you see enlightenment as a one-way ticket where if you become enlightened you can never go back to the ego state? Can you be enlightened and at the same time operate on a lower level of energy to function more in the world? Well, Herman, I think anything is possible. I also think that some states are so high it gets unlikely that you ever come back. But up to a certain point, you can come back, and you do come back, I've been in very, very high states, and I came back knowingly and consciously. In general, I think a master has the ability to be up or down. He's not limited. I find it very limiting to only be going up or, only be going down. You can go up and down, left and right, forward and backward as a master, flexibility. And that shows a, high level of awareness and consciousness. And where there's less limitation. And a lot of these books, they have silly limitations, really silly. I don't understand where they come from. It's not how I see it. It's not my experience, All these rules you read in Hindu books. Hindu books are full of rules. I don't like the religion all that much, but people think, they go to India, they think they're going to get enlightenment. What they get is a bunch of weird rules. You can only achieve this state by doing this and this and this. That's not at all how I see it. And I don't see it as the Buddhists say, that you get enlightened and that's it. There's still travel. There's several levels of high consciousness. And people only see enlightenment, But for me, when they say he's enlightened or I'm enlightened, that would be one of thousands of levels in my eyes. It's not the enlightenment, the high state. It's one of thousands. There's no limit upwards. The next question is from Artur, and it's how to stop deceiving and instead be completely authentic and true with myself and the universe. Well, I have a program, again, on my website called Being Authentic. It's a video course. I recommend that. Moreover, ask yourself if you're willing not to be liked by everyone. That's a good first step. Because often when you're authentic, the first thing is that not everybody's going to like that. Okay? If you're willing for change to happen and not to be liked by everyone and to rock the boat a little bit, that's a good first step to being completely authentic. Because when I'm completely authentic, not everybody agrees with that. The next question is from Ines in Portland, Oregon. My son is in kindergarten and I work full-time. My question is, how would I go about talking to him about dealing with the positive and negative energies of school? In general, what I always say to parents is that more about what you talk and preach, more important is who you are and who you are being, because children learn the most and copy from your behavior, from your energy. So the more important question is how you deal with positive and negative, because children are simply going to copy that. They're going to copy your attitude and your words, your vocabulary. That's what you want to pay attention to. Your energy in front of your child. That said, give your child loving attention while talking, and they primarily want to be heard. Okay, so let them be heard. Your question should be geared towards helping your child integrate the experience. Integrate, should be allowed to talk about it. And then questions should be geared toward preferred experiences. So after integration, you might ask what he wants instead or next time. Okay, I think that's some pretty solid advice. The next question is, how can I be in the 0 point state easily so I can transform from identity to another because I can't calm my rushing mind. Well, if you can't calm your rushing mind, then you've identified the issue, the goal, as a calm mind. Okay? Rushing mind has causes, and calm mind has causes. What creates a calm mind? A calm mind is created by slowing down, by letting go of approval seeking, by taking your time, by finding something you like, by breathing into the stomach, by doing one thing at a time, by focusing, by meditating. Those are all ways to calm a rushing mind. Releasing resistance toward life, toward people, toward situations. Instead of rushing, doing, creating, making, talking. It's less of all of that. Less talking, less rushing, less running, less doing, more being, more feeling. So that's the first thing. The first goal is already implied in your question, to calm the rushing mind. The next question is from Safae. I am a 33-year-old Moroccan woman living in London. My question is, how can I connect more with my femininity and accept it? I was raised in a community where being a woman was shameful and synonymous with weakness and victimhood. And I'm struggling now to see femininity as powerful and beautiful. Thank you. So my first question to you is, what is your role model of femininity? What are some feminine women you admire? And these are women to look at, to study, to feel, to listen to, either out in daily life, on the streets, or among your friends, or on YouTube even. You need to pay more attention to feminine women who are strong, because you've associated femininity with weakness. So of course you need to pay attention to femininity in the context of strength. Also, accept both sides within yourself, masculinity and femininity. Appreciate, nurture both, feel both, allow both. Thirdly, what meaning or definition do you have of femininity? If it's weakness, if you've been given the definition of weakness, how would you like to define femininity? Can you define or redefine it? You see, it's been defined for you as weakness and victimhood. That's what femininity, womanhood means. Well, that's what it meant in your area, your neighborhood, your family, your culture, whatever. What does it mean in other cultures? What does it mean within you? It's up to you to redefine it, to define yourself. To define yourself. Okay? So I gave you 3 pointers. It's up to you to turn these 3 pointers into experiences, into contemplations, into exercises, into something valuable that helps you change. You see? And that goes for every question in this video. It's not solved by me just throwing an answer out there. You take the answer, you examine it, you play with it, you look at it, you think about it over a period of time. Best wishes to you. And even though there are many, many, many more questions, dozens and dozens more, this completes the Ask Me Anything 2020. It's been great questions, the best questions so far, highest level of questions so far. So I look forward to Ask Me Anything in 2021. See you then.